Islam news. Offended by that? Couldn't care less. Look, stop the aggression and the oppression, the militancy. Well, stop covering this issue. We do it because other people won't. They don't have the courage, the moral or the physical courage to do so. Pam Geller is a blogger and writer. Her website is Atlas Shrugs. She joins me now from New York. New York, welcome to you.
Hey, so happy to be here.
Good, good. Now, well, what is going on in the world of Islam, both in the Islamic diaspora and in the Islamic heartland? Is everything all safe and warm and hunky-dory now?
Well, I think this has been a banner year for Islamic imperialism. When you consider that we lost Egypt, we lost Iraq, we lost Afghanistan, Tunisia, it's sweeping, it's stunning. And I think that 2012 will be remembered as the year where hope really died, hope of averting a violent collision between civilizations. When you consider that President Obama actually recruited Sheikh Qaradawi, leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, to negotiate for the Taliban, who was living in caves upwards of 3-4 years ago, is now secure in power in Afghanistan. And one has to question what President Obama's agenda really was. If he had meant to turn Afghanistan over to the heinous Taliban, then why would he spend 3 years sending our soldiers to die with impossible rules of engagement? I'm deeply distressed by what's happening across the world and the catastrophic consequences we can come to expect. I think the media is absolutely corrupt and negligent and irresponsible, with the exception of yourself and Mr. Levant, and the few the truth tellers and freedom lovers, who increasingly are marginalized by Western intellectuals and the media. Do they think they'll be spared, Michael? Do they really believe that they will be spared? They'll be first, I assure you.
Well, let me ask you something here, because I would predict many people would have said, lost Egypt, but we got rid of this brutal dictator and it must be free. I knew Egypt under Mubarak. In fact, I even knew Mubarak a little. This is a deeply flawed man. He was ultimately a pragmatist. He wasn't a sadist the way Saddam Hussein was, but there was a police force of an oppressive nature. Egypt was not some hellhole. It was not the place it could have been and should have been. But what has happened now, we've removed this man who was a friend of the West, who wanted a clumsy and messy but ongoing peace treaty with Israel. We've now allowed the forces of Islamism to come to power. We have seen nothing yet. I predict within 2 years, Christians will hemorrhage that country. Secular progressive Muslims will live in fear. Women will be obliged to dress in dark tents. This will look back at Mubarak and think, wow, were we too hasty in allowing that man to be deposed?
Well, I have to tell you, I supported Mubarak, and I supporting him. And the fact that America would throw away a 30-year ally with both hands while Obama literally sat on his hands when the only true Arab Spring, the only true revolution of freedom in Iran, was taking place in June, July, August of 2009. And how do you even know that, even without having a cursory knowledge of, say, geopolitical, events? The women were in the streets. Women with hijab, women without hijab, lipstick, eyeliner, so on and so forth. That was a real revolution. I don't believe that millions of men calling for the death of America, calling for the death of Israel, screaming Allahu Akbar, under a Sheikh Qaradawi who promises to retake Jerusalem, who promises to abandon the Israeli-Egypt peace accord. Mubarak was the only Muslim leader who agreed to a peace accord with Israel. Why would we throw him out with both hands? And the Muslim Brotherhood had wanted Egypt for a very long time. We did that. We delivered that, Michael. And that will be a stain on American history for decades, decades to come.
I think there are other leaders in the region. Obviously, Jordan has a peace treaty which, at least on a personal level, with the royal family, is relatively close with Israel. We have other countries that are relatively moderate, some of the Gulf states and so on. But it's very troubling because when we look at Syria, for example, Assad is a dictator. His father was a dictator. They have murdered thousands of people. But at the same time, the very people who want to overthrow him are being led by a Muslim Brotherhood that has made it quite clear that the secularism of Syria will be a thing of the past. So I'm not saying we should choose one side or the other, but I'm uncomfortable with this absurdly optimistic grasping of anything that seems like rebellion in the Arab world. It's not always for the positive.
No, clearly not. But it was not the Muslim Brotherhood agitating in Iran. That really was a people's movement, and we've seen those people's movement. Under Bush, we saw the Cedar Revolution. We saw the Rose Revolution. I think it's very important who the leader of the free world is, and I think that by abandoning freedom and liberty, that we have created this vacuum, and evil loves a vacuum. And interestingly enough, we look increasingly towards your Prime Minister Harper, who has shown, who has shown bold courage, spine, even in this new office of religious, the protection of freedom to worship or freedom from religion, whereas we had a office such as that, and we're dismantling it here in America under President Obama. So I think that who leads the free world is critical, Michael. We can't understate that. And we also you can't take sides and always choose the wrong side, which increasingly Obama has done. Look, why would we interfere in Libya on the side of jihadist elements, on the side of al-Qaeda? And clearly Gaddafi is no prince. But I assure you what's coming there. The transitional government already said that it's going to be a Sharia government. In Tunisia as well. This is sweeping changes. Nothing happens for decades, and decades happen in a day. And if people think they're going to be isolated from this, or this is not going to affect them in any way, they're in for an incredibly rude awakening. And that's why this presidential election is so critical in America. It's, the caucuses are today. You see the paradox. You see Ron Paul, who advocates for giving Iran the nuclear bomb, who wants the abandonment of Israel, and then you have a Santorum who understands quite deeply what's our foreign policy and the ramifications of inaction or certain action. And the same can be said of Newt Gingrich, who I have enormous issues with, but he's been very bold and said bold things. And I love Bachmann; she would be my choice. But there is if people want to know what's happening in America right now.
You haven't named the likely winner there, have you, Pam? You've named all those people, but the chances are that none of those will actually win.
I know. It's really frightening, isn't it? But we're battling for the soul of the free world here. This is what is happening now. We're entering a critical time in history. We may very well be entering a very, very dark age, Michael. Very dark.
Well, that was fun. We'll have you back. I'm going away for 2 weeks at the end of this week. When I come back, as long as they allow me back in, we'll certainly have you back on the show. I refuse to be beaten by those people who say you shouldn't have certain people on the show. I'll have whoever I want on this television show. Thank you so much for your time.
You are a leading light. Thank you, Michael.